بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. أسأل الله تبارك وتعالى أن يجعل نياتنا خالصة لوجهه الكريم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. I pray that all of you are well in a state of afia, and I want us to keep in mind the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which he said, أفضل ما قلت أنا والنبيون من قبلي لا إله إلا الله. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that the best thing that I and the prophets before me have said is La ilaha illallah. And there is the narration that one who dies on that kalima of La ilaha illallah will enter paradise. من كان آخر كلامه لا إله إلا الله دخل الجنة. So it is important when we say La ilaha illallah, what follows that is known in the religion is Muhammadun Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. When you say La ilaha illallah, it is sufficient to know Muhammadun Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. You don't always have to say La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah. This is a methodology that the scholars use and that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam used as an expression. For our class and for those who attend our class, and I want you to get this from me, though we teach many things, and there are many things that we're going to learn, inshallah ta'ala, the most important of those things is ilm tawheed, which we ended up yesterday talking about. The science of the creed. This is the most important thing we can learn. And I know some of you, may Allah bless you all for your efforts. You are exposed to many different thoughts. And there are those out there who say, it doesn't matter what you believe. And they play the sect game. You know, the sect game. I don't belong to no sect. I'm only in the sect of Quran and Sunnah. I'm not Ash'ari, I'm not Sufi, I'm not Salafi, I'm not Shia, I'm Quran and Sunnah. Translation, I'm default Wahhabi. And I'm going to be explicit about these things. You know why? You ever heard the term passive aggressive? Passive aggressive. We got a lot of that going on today. I'm throwing rocks, but then I say it wasn't me, but I'm throwing the rocks every day. So what I say is, let's explain the truth, right? Let's explain the truth. This is our religion. We don't have time for that. We have to clarify the truth. So some things you have to be wise about. You have to know your doctrine well enough, your creed, your practice well enough, so that you can identify when someone is going away from the path that's going to lead you to success in the hereafter. It's important, because today we have many things we're faced with outside the religion and within the religion. So we have to learn well. So when I emphasize the issue of the creed, it's important because you want to die on the correct creed. And that's a job you're faced with. You have to figure it out. You can't run away from it. You can't ignore it. You have to decide, each and every one of us, as morally responsible individuals, we have to decide what is the correct way to practice and understand and believe in our religion, al-Islam. There's no way around it. And with that being said, learn well, understand well, because we have a lot of people who are pretending to be Ahl Sunnah and spreading ideas that are not consistent with the belief of Ahl Sunnah. And this is something that is a trial, a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we have to deal with it. But one way we will deal with it is by learning properly, right? And once you learn properly, then you're going to have to fight your own desires and passions. Because when you learn knowledge, you're going to be faced with its opposite, which is ignorance. Or when you learn truth, you're going to be faced with its opposite, which is falsehood. And how you deal with that is going to be challenging. I want you to imagine the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala sent him with the revelation. And he had to go to his family, to his fellow tribesmen who were worshiping idols. And he had to tell them the issues of at-Tawheed. You can imagine that that was a trying test for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He has to tell his family something that they're not going to accept. But he, salawatullahi wassalamu alayhi, he did it. May Allah raise his rank and gather us under his banner on the day of judgment. So we have a similar obligation in our time. We have to spread the knowledge. We have to teach the religion as it has reached us. Because what people don't realize, many people, and I don't accuse those who may differ from Ahl Sunnah with insincerity, with not wanting the truth, I don't accuse them of that. What I believe, and this is just my belief, I could be right, I could be wrong. I believe that most of them weren't exposed to enough knowledge, right? Most of them were not exposed to enough knowledge, especially knowledge of the creed, knowledge in Aqidah. So what happened is even some of those who studied overseas, they went to countries where they were indoctrinated. They weren't taught. There's a difference. There's a difference between indoctrination and teaching and education. Indoctrination, this is our belief. Here's your pamphlets. Here's your few books. That's all you study. That's all you know about. That's your deen. And for a beginner, sometimes this is the safest way, especially when they're in an environment that the opposite is not available. So it's only that. So it works in terms of instilling what you want in a person. So that's what happened to a lot of our people. They went overseas, they were in Saudi Arabia, they were treated well, and they were indoctrinated. They didn't know anything else. They weren't exposed to anything else. That's all they had. Whereas education is to teach you the correct belief while also allowing you to understand your environment and understand the different things you're going to be faced with and how to deal with them and approach them and explain the doctrine that is true from the doctrine is false. And most people who are converts, they confront that. A person may have been a Christian, for instance, and they believe certain beliefs. They may have believed in the Trinity or other different beliefs. And when they took Shahada, they had to leave off certain beliefs. And they had to deal with maybe their family, maybe their church members who was like, what are you doing? So it was a point that they had to be able to explain, even in a basic way, why they had a change of belief. That is the same issue, right? It's the same issue that you learn and you have to explain. So you have to learn well to explain. But I'm telling you, in our environments, the most manifest doctrine that opposes the doctrines of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, the Asha'ira and Maturidiyya, is that Wahhabi doctrine and its default counterpart. That Wahhabi doctrine and its default counterpart, meaning, or should I say its default partner. Meaning people who have been influenced for Wahhabism have that belief and don't realize, or they could be hiding, Allah knows best, but they don't know what they are carrying, and they think it's Islam, or they think it's the true Islamic belief. So we talked about at-Tawheed. That is going to be the most important subject. The first obligation on the servant, on the accountable person, is to know and properly believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without any doubt. Without any doubt. And it's going to boil down to certain things, especially between Ahl Sunnah and those other groups. Either you believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is transcendent above non-befitting attributes and attributes of the creation, or you hold this other belief that Allah has attributes, that their meanings are meanings which apply and necessitate created attributes. And you say that, no, we say Allah is not like his creation while giving him all attributes of creation. And it seems like sometimes for the person who doesn't understand well that we're saying the same thing when we're saying completely opposite things. And the clearest way to know this, that Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, al-Asha'ira wal Maturidiyah, clear Allah from places and locations and directions and distance and bodily attributes and the meanings related to that, like movement, like rest, like organs, like limbs, like parts, all of that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is clear from such attributes and descriptions. Whereas that other belief puts Allah in a place, ascribes him with movements, attributes to him organs, limbs, body parts. Wal-iyadhu billah. So there's a difference, a big difference. While at the same time saying that nothing resembles Allah. And what do they mean when they say nothing resembles Allah? That's where they twist the term bila kayf to mean, and we don't know how. So Allah moves, Allah is in a location, Allah has organs, but they say we don't know how. So when they make these claims, the way they try to confuse people is to say, we don't know how. But these are real attributes of Allah, and they're not like us, but they're real, but we don't know how they are. That's not the belief of Ahl Sunnah. We don't say about Allah how. How, marfu'un anhu, it's negated about Allah. We don't say how when we talk about Allah and his attributes. There is no how. Not there is a how and we don't know it. La, there is no how about Allah and his attributes. Is this point clear? Because you're going to run into this a lot. Allah. And this ain't being a theologian. This is obligatory belief. This is the obligatory belief of Muslims. So you get this, oh, we don't need to know all these details and, theology and la, 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 la. This is a basic obligatory belief. Allah is attributed with the attribute of al-mukhalafatu lil-hawadith. Allah does not resemble his creation. Are we not allowed to say how, it is haram? Yes, it is haram to say how about Allah. It's unlawful to attribute al-kayfiyya or to ask kayf about Allah. You ask how about created things, not the creator. Tell you. Once you got these points, remember the statement of Junaid. How did Junaid explain at-Tawheed? Does anyone remember? When Junaid explained Tawheed, what did he say? Junaid al-Baghdadi, who died in the year 298, 297 after Hijrah, the head of the people of Tasawwuf. How did he explain at-Tawheed? Do you remember? Allah. Anyone remember? I know it takes a minute. Remember, we have like a 20 to 30-second delay between your response and my response. Between I get so if you're getting the answer, so we're always going to have this little delay. Okay, that's good. More precise. That's true though. That is the same meaning, but I wanted to see more closer to his words. So the answer is correct here. Good, Asa. Tawheed is distinguishing the one who has no beginning from the one who has a beginning, who is a created event. Now, so the meanings are similar with Isla put and with Isa, but I wanted ifradul qidam min al hadath, right? Or al qadim min al hadith, right? That's Tawheed. And the great Imam Abu Ja'far al-Tahawi, who was a great Imam of the Salaf, I know I can't type that fast either. So don't worry about Levon. We're in the same boat. That's why it takes me so long. But if we're just learning and patient, it doesn't matter. We all right. Right? We part of our Islam is patience, a sabr. We do it every day, so it makes it easy. Whatever we don't finish today, inshallah, we finish tomorrow. Whatever we learn today, we practice today. If we die, inshallah, we died while seeking knowledge. And the one who dies while seeking knowledge, there's only one rank from him and the prophets. You know, one daraja. That's it. So, alhamdulillah. Imam Abu Ja'far al-Tahawi, he wrote a famous creed, which we're going to study. I think we're going to study it soon. And probably I'm going to start within a week or two because we have to go over this book. We was trying to wait till the pandemic ended and we could go visit you and do it live, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. So we might as well do it online. Imam Abu Ja'far al-Tahawi, he mentioned in his famous creed, Al-Aqidah al-Tahawiyya, a statement that I want you to all memorize. He said, وَمَنْ وَصَفَ اللَّهَ بِمَعْنٍ مِنْ مَعَانِ الْبَشَرِ فَقَدْ كَفَرَ. Whoever, it means, whoever describes Allah with a meaning or a characteristic from among the meanings of the creation has committed disbelief. So there's one H. I'm sorry, that second H should be taken out. See, I told you, Levon, I can't type either. Type too fast, I make mistakes. Tahawi is Tahawi. Take the H out. I'll put it back. That's good. I'm sorry. So he said, whoever describes Allah with a characteristic or a meaning from among the meanings or characteristics of human beings has disbelieved. وَمَنْ وَصَفَ اللَّهَ بِمَعْنًا مِنْ مَعَانِ الْبَشَرِ فَقَدْ كَفَرَ. I want you to pay, and he's from the Salaf. So he lived the same time as Imam al-Ash'ari and Imam al-Maturidi at the end of the time of his Salaf. And Imam al-Tahawi was a Hafiz. And when you read this line of Imam al-Tahawi, which is explicit, Imam al-Tahawi, he learned knowledge in his beginning of his studies from his maternal uncle, Al-Imam al-Muzani. And Imam al-Muzani, he learned his knowledge from Imam al-Shafi'i. And Imam al-Shafi'i, among his teachers was Sufyan ibn Uyayna, was Imam Malik. And Imam Malik, he learned from Nafi', and Nafi' learned from Abdullah ibn Umar, and Abdullah ibn Umar learned from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this, in hadith, this end of that chain is considered the golden chain, among the highest chains of hadith, right? And Imam al-Shafi'i and Imam al-Tahawi is only one link from that great chain in terms of from Imam al-Shafi'i to Malik to Nafi to Abdullah ibn Umar to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And al-Tahawi was a Hafiz, a Faqih, a great Hafiz who memorized over 100,000 hadith, a jurist in the Shafi'i and the Hanafi schools. His books are amazing. And what did he say? وَمَنْ وَصَفَ اللَّهَ بِمَعْنٍ مِنْ مَعَانِ الْبَشَرِ فَقَدْ كَفَرَ. Whoever describes Allah with a meaning, and here ma'na means meaning, and it could have the meaning of a characteristic. It's a meaning. He said among the meanings of the human beings that apply to human beings. So you don't have to say the word, you don't have to say Allah is a human being. No one has to say that to have the same effect. If you give characteristics to Allah that are characteristics of human beings, this is disbelief. You don't have to use the word. You don't have to say Allah is a body. Give him attributes of bodies. The meanings that only apply to bodies, the meanings that only apply to human beings, this is disbelief. And if you study all of the Wahhabi commentaries on this book, you will notice that all of them, they challenge Imam al-Tahawi in this issue. Subhanallah. And when we study this book, I'll show you one of the mistakes that I made. And I don't say it's a mistake, it's a way of learning, was that we used to listen to our teachers, which you should do, but we didn't do in the beginning further research. So maybe it was good because we learned first, right? So when we researched, we knew what we were doing, right? But we didn't know what people who were deviating from Ahl Sunnah, what they said and what they entailed. To later, we started to read their works so that we would understand exactly what we're talking about. And then when you more to read their works, you started to discover Once you affirm in Ahl Sunnah, because now you're a teacher, now your job is to explain. So in order to explain, you got to know what is wrong to attribute to people things they don't believe. So we started to notice a trend that those people, they were considering all of our scholars of Islam as misguided. But with them, they use nice words. With us, they use harsh words. And because they can't get around their works, they would say, you know, he made a mistake in Aqidah. La ilaha illallah. All of them made mistakes in Aqidah. With all of their knowledge, they didn't even know the basic belief in Islam. They were all theologians. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Now, so with that, the biggest lesson that I want you to get is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not resemble his creation in wording or in meaning All of the characteristics of the human being, of the creation, do not apply to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is this clear for everyone? If you get this point, whenever we talk about hadith and verses, it's easy to understand. If you got this point first, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is free of any resemblance to the creation in wording or in meaning or in characteristics. Absolutely no resemblance between Allah and his creation in any way. Is this clear? And Allah is not something you can imagine. You cannot know his reality. This is the belief of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. Okay, quickly, I'm going to take a few of your questions related to this, and then we have a biography to read. And I want to do these other two things real quick, if I can. When we say nothing is like to him, that's not in Al-Fatiha. That's in Surah 42, verse 11. But nevertheless, when we say nothing is like unto him and nothing resembles him, it's just a switch of words. But now you got to understand what is resemblance and what is likening Allah to his creation. That's the thing. So every attribute of the human, of the creation, anything in creation, Allah is different from that. So every attribute of the creation, Allah is different from that. That's simple. That's all you have to understand for right now. And whenever you see words that come in the Quran and the Hadith that are similar to the words that apply to creation, know that the meaning that applies to those words in relation to Allah is different from that which applies to creation. Is that clear? So you have words that are in the Quran, in the Hadith, that they are applied to Allah, and those words are applied to creation. And what you must know and understand, that those words, when they apply to creation, they have one meaning. When they apply to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they have a total different meaning. Even if you don't know the reality of that meaning, those words are applied to Allah. Is that clear? I'll repeat it so you make sure you understand. You have in the Quran and the Hadith words, bil-lughatul Arabiyyah, in Arabic language. Those words, they apply, are used for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for created things. What our job is as believers to maintain Allah's divine transcendence at tanzih, is to know that the meaning of those words when applied to Allah is distinctly different, does not resemble in any way the meaning of those words when applied to the creation. Is this clear? So for instance, if I'm talking about a human being and I say yed, let me just give you a word. Yed, hand, literal meaning of hand. For you, just one word just to give you the example, right? Because I need you to just get the points and then we'll go in details later, right? I'm sorry. So you got this word yet in Arabic. The literal meaning of yet, what is literal meaning? It is the first meaning that comes to your mind when you hear the word, right? So if we say yet about a creation, yet, so if I say yedi, my hand, right? You already know what is meant as the well-known limb, right? Yet, hand. That's the meaning of yet when it is applied to me or to you. Or to another creation, it is an appendage, an organ, right? A part. When yet is used for Allah, the same word, we cannot give that meaning to Allah. Do you understand? It has a meaning that befits Allah, even if we don't know it, and we submit to that. Why? Because we cannot know the reality of Allah. We affirm that Allah has sifatul yad, the attribute of yad. And we don't translate it to hand. Why? Because what we understand from hand is not befitting to Allah. So we just said yadullah. Perfect. Right there, Crystal. That's it. It's easy. Because you know where you get confused? The Wahhabi double talk is confusing you because you don't understand the foundations of belief. So, you know, people say basic Aqidah. They don't know basic Aqidah. That's why you keep getting confused. So when you say yet, for the creation, it has a meaning, the limb. When you use the word yadullah, the yad of Allah, you don't have that meaning of hand, a limb with fingers, with an organ. It cannot mean that related to Allah. Why? Allah is clear of al-jismiyah, bodily appendages. You cannot say that about Allah. Laysa kamithlihi shay. Nothing resembles him. And so you cannot escape that by saying Allah has a real hand, we just don't know how his hand is. A real hand means an organ, a limb. And if you say, oh, it's not a limb, it's not an organ, but it's real, then what is the meaning of real? You mean you affirming the attribute to Allah as the attribute yet? This is befitting, right? But if you mean by that it is an organ, that is a limb, that it has a meaning from the meanings that apply to the creations, and you just don't know it, how it actually is, but it's like that, this is wrong. This is a problem. And that's why you pay attention to the words of Imam al-Tahawi, وَمَنْ وَصَفَ اللَّهَ بِمَعْنٍ مِنْ مَعَانِ الْبَشَرِ فَقَدْ كَفَرَ. He's talking about meanings. He's not talking about words. because the words are come by the necessity of the language. You have to use the Arabic language, and that's what the Quran was revealed in. So it has a specific wording in the language. But the meanings that apply to Allah and the creation are not the same. This is simple stuff. It's not really that complicated. What is complicated when somebody already gave you an anthropomorphic view of Allah and now you got to fix it. That's where it becomes complicated, because they have misinterpreted the Quran and the Hadith and fed it to you for so long that it's hard to overcome that. And then you get to the emotional point because they spread all over the place, and you're confronted with, you learned the correct belief and you're around people with bad belief. So you're in a dilemma. And all of those help you not to accept sometimes what is very clear right before your eyes. I said that, Abdul Qadir, is going to take at least 20 years, and I need to condition that if we work very hard every single day and support and spread and teach, it's very important. Because while we're doing this, there are two problems we're faced. I'm sorry. Man, oh man, it's not enough time. There are two problems we're faced with. Number one, we're faced with false belief in the name of Islam. That's one problem. So in the name of Islam, I'm a Muslim, I'm Sunni, I'm Ahl Sunnah, but I'm spreading beliefs that contradict the belief in Islam, the belief of the Sunnis, the belief of Ahl Sunnah. I'm spreading beliefs that contradict that. That's one problem. So you're faced with that. Then the second problem is the people who have the correct belief and they're not working hard enough. So you're not having enough spread. They're not spending their money on the da'wah. They're not really engaged. They've went off and left the issues of the people to fend for themselves. It's a problem. So you're facing both of those challenges, which makes it extremely difficult. That's why it takes so much time. I remember one of our teachers, he said something. He said, are you not shy? The people of misguidance and innovation are so energetic with their falsehood, and the people of truth are so lazy with their truth. I said, deep. He said, are you not shy? Are you not shy? The people of misguidance and innovation are so energetic with their misguidance and innovation, and the people of truth are so lazy with their truth. May Allah protect us. Go ahead, what was that question? I'm going to read one biography before we end. This is important. I can't let it go. Especially when I have people right in my circle, telling people the opposite of belief. I have to correct it. And I have to make changes, which is going to hurt even more. But the truth is more important than friendships. The meaning of that verse means by Allah's knowledge, not by his essence. So meaning closer to your jugular vein, meaning Allah is aware of you. It has nothing to do with his essence. So he's not next to you physically. He doesn't indwell in creation. So the meaning of that verse is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware of you by his knowledge. This is a beautiful question. Now you see why Tawheed is so important. Dear Imam Amin, lowly servant of Allah, who people think is a sheikh, but he's not a sheikh. How do we understand the hadith where a physical attribute is mentioned in a hadith or a verse? Are we to read it and not think too much about it, like the face of Allah, which is not proper, shin of Allah, which is not proper, or hand of Allah, which is not proper? We just don't think about it? The reason I'm asking is I have a 3-year-old and he has started to ask why and how questions. Tayyib. Number one, those verses in hadith where the apparent meaning that rushes to your mind entails physical attributes, you're misunderstanding the hadith and the verse. And they need to be explained by what? By clearing Allah from resembling the creation, right? So when you see Wajhullah, Saq, which is not an attribute, Yadullah, when you see those, you understand that they have a meaning befitting to Allah that does not resemble that of human beings. So what do you tell your 3-year-old? You tell him or her, I forget which you had, a boy or a girl, please forgive me, Abdullah. You tell them first that Allah is not like his creation. And you explain that to the child. So Allah is not something you can imagine in your mind. Allah is different from everything in creation. When you teach them that, then they won't have those concepts. And then you teach them the basic beliefs as they get older. But the first thing you teach the child when they are young and you instill in them is that Allah is not like his creation. Whatever you imagine in your mind, Allah is different from that. Get that concept of the creator and the creation in their mind. The creator is unlike his creation. That's the basic foundation that you build your children upon. So when they grow up, even without you, when they read the books of the Quran and Hadith, hopefully by then they learn. But when they get to that point, they already know that Allah is not like the creation. So whatever I imagine in my mind, this is not like Allah, this is not Allah's reality. You cannot encompass. We have so much to go. Right? You cannot encompass Allah. Let me please read this part. I'll come back to your questions. Sister Halima, Ibn Qayyim, do you know who he is? Ibn, and you should say Ibn al-Qayyim when you use his name. If you use Ibn Qayyim, you got to put al-Jawziyah next to it. Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah. If you just say Ibn Qayyim, you got to say Ibn al-Qayyim. This is so you identify him correctly. He was one of the main students of Ibn Taymiyyah. And he was, in his time, having the belief, not as bad, of the Wahhabis of our time. That's why so many people know him. Ibn Qayyim is not to be accepted in the matters of the creed. He, like his teacher, Ibn Taymiyyah, were misguided in tenets of faith. They were knowledgeable people, no doubt about it. But, but they were misguided in the issues of the creed. And both of them were rejected by the scholars of their time for their bad beliefs, for their bad anthropomorphic beliefs. It is from them that the Wahhabiyya took some of their creed. And Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab went even further than them. But both of them, Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn al-Qayyim, both of them were misguided in tenets of faith. So when you read his books, know that you're reading the books of someone who likened Allah to his creation. Let me read this one biography quickly in the Reliance of the Traveler, page 1090. Biographical note X301, Al-Imam Al-Qurtubi.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah. The author, may Allah Ta'ala have mercy on him, said, Imam Qurtubi is Muhammad ibn Ahmed ibn Abu Bakr ibn Thara Abdullah al-Ansari al-Qurtubi of Cordova in present-day Spain. A Maliki scholar and hadith specialist. He was one of the greatest imams of Quranic exegesis, an ascetic who divided his days between worship and writing, educated in hadith by masters like Ali ibn Muhammad al-Yasabi and al-Hassan ibn Muhammad al-Bakri. He wrote works in the sciences of hadith and tenets of faith, though his enduring contribution is his 20-volume Al-Jami li Ahkam al-Quran, the compendium of the rules of the Quran, from which he mainly omitted the stories and histories customary in other commentaries, and recorded instead the legal rulings contained in the Quran and how scholars have inferred them, together with canonical readings, Qira'at, Arabic grammar, in which verses abrogate others and which are abrogated, Nasikh wa Mansukh. Nasikh wa Mansukh. Scholars have used it extensively ever since it was written. It is related that Qurtubi disdained heirs and used to walk about in a simple with a plain cap, tekiya, on his head. He traveled east and settled in Munya Abi el-Husayb in Upper Egypt, where he died in 71.
So remember his date, 671. Hold on one second. So Imam al-Qurtubi, he wrote the famous book Al-Jami li Ahkam al-Quran. Sorry, this is not it. Why am I mentioning these scholars? Because I'm going to be sharing with you their books. Al-Qurtubi has among the most famous tafsirs of the Quran called Al-Jami'u li Ahkam al-Quran, right? And here you'll notice on this, what the Wahhabis print and give our people in English, the Noble Quran in English translation. But I want you to pay attention to here, right? There is Al-Qurtubi, right? It says a summarized version of At-Tabari, which is Tafsir At-Tabari, Al-Qurtubi, and Ibn Kathir, right? With comments from Sahih al-Bukhari. So what they're tricking you into believe when you read this book, you're getting a summary of At-Tabari, Al-Qurtubi, and Ibn Kathir with Sahih Bukhari, as if At-Tabari and Al-Qurtubi and Ibn Kathir and Imam al-Bukhari believe the stuff you got in this book. And I want to show you something that is in their books that these translators left out and change the belief of Qurtubi and Imam al-Bukhari and Ibn Kathir and gave you something else that you read every day and you think that you're following the way of the Salaf. So read that biography of Qurtubi. Tomorrow, I'm going to show you in their books, especially Al-Qurtubi, tomorrow morning, what he said about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his book. And I'm going to go through At-Tabari and Ibn later, but I'm going to show you something from Al-Qurtubi tomorrow. I was thinking about it yesterday. Because we told you that these books, they say that Allah is above his throne in heaven. Al-Qurtubi didn't say that. Al-Qurtubi said the belief of Ahl-Sunnah. He was Maliki, he was Ash'ari, and he was a Hadith scholar, and he wrote books of tenets of faith. And every time you see this, you get to say deceit, deceit, deceit. Why didn't you put his belief in the book? Why didn't you tell us he was Ash'ari? Why didn't you tell us At-Tabari made Ta'wil? Why didn't you tell us Qurtubi made Ta'wil? Why didn't you tell us Ibn Kathir made Ta'wil? Figurative interpretation. They didn't believe the, are they bad books? This book is, in tenets of faith, not permissible to read in terms of learning from it. Why do we have it? Because our people are being smashed with it. And if we don't explain, they're going to fall in it because it's paraded as the best translation of the Quran. And unfortunately, we need a lot of work. Every translation got problems, so I'm not criticizing that. But this book, subhanallah, it has many errors. And we will explain it. Don't worry. We're going to learn the correct creed, and you're going to learn the books. Here's a problem, and I understand this problem, and Crystal just indicated. I am becoming aware that a lot of these English translations has been corrupted. But how can we avoid this if this is what we rely on because we don't know Arabic? That's a legitimate question. It's a legitimate question. I remember when I was visiting Sheikh Mohammed Ramadan al-Bouti in Syria. I never forget this statement he said. I'm telling you this. He said, you got to understand, the enemies of Islam use political movements to destroy Islam from within. And he said they used in the Hijaz, which is the areas of Mecca, Medina, the Wahhabiyya, to come in and destroy Islam from within. Unfortunately, most of our translations came from the route of the Wahhabiyyas. That's in our environments, right? That's available to us because of their oil money. So some of us must learn Arabic. So that's a fard kifaya. Not everybody has to know Arabic. Some of us must learn. And then some of us must learn the details. Not everybody. Everybody doesn't have to be a theologian. Everybody doesn't have to know all the evidences and proofs. But there must be some among us who are trustworthy and reliable, who learn that and they teach the others. What we need at the basic level is to teach people how to have the correct belief and practice, not just belief, and practice of Islam. And that means you need living teachers. I mean, there's a lot to this. It's a lot to unpack, right? But because it's a lot, we can't just throw up our hands and say, oh, I'm too lazy to do that. No, we got to work. That's why we talk about supporting. That's why we talk about educating. That's why we talk about dedicating some of your children to seek knowledge. All of this is a part of it. You know, we have work to do. So I don't recommend any translation. I can't, because they all have mistakes. What I recommend is that you learn with trustworthy teachers that are Ahl Sunnah, with an unbroken chain if they're available to you. And then as you read, they will begin to teach you and you won't fall into those errors. right? That's the only way. There is no other way. You have to learn with a trustworthy teacher. You shouldn't learn by yourself. You should have a teacher. And that teacher will help you by showing you where the errors are. As you're reading, as you're going, because you're going to read. I can't tell you don't read. You should read. But you should have a foundational knowledge first before you read. So you understand what to believe before you start reading. You understand Islamic tenets of faith. And that's what people's missing. We're going into books and reading and don't know what to believe in the first place. Because no one never taught you what is the Islamic creed. Therefore, when you read, you're open to all kinds of misguidance. Last night, I realized this. One of our brothers, may Allah have mercy on him and help him, assist him, increase him in knowledge and raise his rank. He had Shiite ideas, Mu'tazili ideas, Wahhabi ideas, Sunni ideas, all mixed up together. That's a mess, right? Shiite ideas, Mu'tazili ideas, Wahhabi ideas, and Sunni ideas, all in one. And he cannot know which one is which. This is a lot of our problems. And we have to fix it. That's why you need teachers. And that's when I say to you, people need to be dedicated this 24/7. And you need to help. Why? So they can research, so they can study, and they can teach. And that's all they do. Because if we're going to change the situation, somebody got to give their life to this. Somebody got to be, listen, this is your life. You don't have another life. Your life is learning and teaching. That's your life. You don't have another life. And I don't think we get it. And a part of it is because we don't take our deen serious enough. Right? For our dunya, we do it. We need doctors. We make doctors. We need doctors. We send people to school for 10, 20 years and internship and training and residency. We need cars. We get engineers. We need, higher degrees. We pay teachers. And we do all that for our dunya. When it comes for our religion, nothing left. This is a problem. This is our problem. We got to get over it. And this is not to discourage you. It's just showing the work we got to do, right? But I believe if we keep studying and we get it right and we dedicate our efforts, we'll change the situation. But we got work to do because while we're not working, they're working diligently to spread that stuff. And it don't got to be a fight. It just got to be education. It's not a fight. And keep this in mind. Really, 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 really keep this in mind, right? We're all in this together. None of us made this stuff up ourselves. It was conveyed to us. Now we got to sift through it and figure out what is right and wrong, right? So even the one who has the bad belief, was the right belief available for them? Did they have access to teachers that could teach them Ahl Sunnah and teach them the knowledge? Do they know the books? Some of them do, and them are criminals. Those who are like that, they are criminal. No, we don't know. I don't, Sister Nejma, I wouldn't say we are not dumb. We are very smart people. They just gave us wrong information. That's it. It's not our fault. Like we did something wrong. We weren't exposed to the truth. So we worked with what we had. And we did a good job with what we had. Alhamdulillah. But we don't stay there when we learn truth. That's the problem. We don't stay misguided once we learn the truth. We didn't know. So, right? I'm going to tell you a story. You want to hear a story quickly? Where's Imam Fahim? He likes story. I had a son, was a son of my ex-wife, right? It's still like my son. I raised him, it's my homie, right? Since he was a little kid. When he was in grade school, he was a little rough little guy, man. Like, he used to drive those teachers crazy, right? So I used to have to come to the school, and he wasn't, just mischief stuff, Dennis the Menace type stuff. Nothing bad, right? And the young teacher, she would call me all the time. He's doing this, he's doing that. So I would go to the school, give him a little look, rough him up a little bit. He'd be straight, but he'd keep doing it. So one day I went to, she called me during the middle of the day. He was messing with somebody, doing what he do, doing his thing. And she took us outside the classroom and talked. She said, listen, young fella, she called him by name. I won't mention his name, right? She said, when you're young right now, it's cute to you. Yeah, he did the tact thing too, with students, not the teacher though, right? And she said, when you're doing this stuff now, it seems cute and it's funny and it's all jokes. When you get older, this is not going to be funny. She said, it's just like when you go to the farm and you see the little baby piggy. Oh, look at the little piggy. It's rolling around in the dirt. It's the little piggy. When it becomes a full-grown pig, it's disgusting. She said, this behavior is going to become disgusting. So when you're the point, when you're a little kid, you can get away with that. As you develop, you need to develop with your age. When you don't have knowledge, it's understandable. But when you start learning, you got to do better. Don't be like these people I've been Muslim for 40 years and I still haven't learned the basics of my creed. I can't explain it without fumbling. That's a problem. I still don't know the basic rules of Islamic jurisprudence without fumbling. That's a problem. That's a problem. And it's not to put no one down. It's to elevate us. We got to stop having that problem. We learn, we develop. Let me give you a quick example of that. Imam al-Ash'ari, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he was following the Mu'tazila creed for 40 years. And at 40 years old, he was the sheikh of the Mu'tazila. He became Ahl Sunnah. And he corrected all of his errors. And he did it on the Jummah khutbah in front of all the people. He said, I was wrong, I was mistaken, and from now on, I will defend the Sunnah of the Prophet. And he wrote books correcting all of his mistakes. And to this day, majority of the Muslims are Ash'ari in Aqidah. And that's where he was at. He was 40 years old when he changed from Mu'tazila to Ash'ari. And that was based on a dream he had of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why he changed? He was 40 and he went on the Jummah khutbah in Iraq in front of all those people, scholars, and he said, I was wrong. That's Imam Abu Hassan al-Ash'ari. So it's okay. It's okay to have been mistaken. It's not okay to learn the truth and then not correct yourself. That's not okay. And since this is something that has all been transmitted to us, it shouldn't be an ego trip, right? It shouldn't be an ego trip. So for instance, if I'm talking to someone who says the Ash'aris are wrong, all right, fine, show me. There's no problem. That's your belief, show me. And let's examine the cases. Because if I don't want to be wrong, right? So you're telling me all of these great scholars were wrong. The way we received our religion was conveyed by people who didn't understand what to believe. I find that quite highly unlikely, should I say. But if you say that's the case, show me. But then when you break it down and you tell me, leave off all these hundreds of thousands of scholars for these 6, 7, 8, 9 men and their followers, who are not at the rank of knowledge and understanding of those scholars you're telling me to leave off. But you keep reading those scholars' books. I don't understand. You rely on them. You teach them. You edit them. You use them, but they are misguided. Why you use their books? That doesn't make sense to me at all. Because you'll never see me teaching from Wahhabi books. That's not going to happen. If I use a Wahhabi book, I'm showing you the error. But we got our Sunni tradition, not in Hadith, not in fiqh, not in Aqidah, not in Tasawwuf, not in Arabic language, in nothing will you see me teaching a Wahhabi book. But ask the Wahhabis, teach your whole doctrine and don't use no Sunni Ash'ari books. They can't. Shouldn't that tell you something? Talk about Hadith and don't quote the books of the Ash'aris. Don't use the references of the Ash'ira and the Sufis. They can't. But if you go the other way, tell the Ash'ari and the Sufis, right, not to use Wahhabi books. Easy. We don't use Wahhabi books anyway. Not hard. We have our own books, our own chains of narration, our own teachers. We don't need that stuff at all. We'll never use them except to explain that they are mistaken. That's it. Think about that. Think about that. That's something to think about. And as y'all say in y'all word, how y'all say it? The young people, maybe the older people are saying it now. How you do it? Y'all funny. What is it? Is that what they say? Facts. That's funny, right? That's true. Go study all these guys who say, I'm a Hadith specialist and we got our correct creed. Go look at the books when they want to really talk seriously. Go look at the books they point out. Hafiz ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, An-Nawawi, Al-Qurtubi, At-Tabari, on and on and on. Ajurumiyya. In any science, you'll see they're using books of Ash'aris, Sufis, and all of that. Think about it. And that's not something I made up. It's your books. And guess what they do with all these books? They take their footnote. If they don't outright change the book, they'll correct all the scholars and their footnotes. The author is mistaken here. The real belief is the belief of the Salaf, blah, 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 blah. And they do that in Imam An-Nawawi's books, Ibn Hajar's books. Let's keep it real. Why keep doing that? Just write your own books. You scholarly. Why you keep using those references that you know are misguided? Because they don't do it. You won't see Sunni teachers teaching from the books of Ibn Taymiyyah or Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah. You'll never see that. And if those you see doing it have what? Have trying to compromise their principles to get along with the Wahhabis. This is real. All right, I went over time again. I'm sorry. Maybe you should give me, can I have a free extra half an hour even if I don't use it? Could I take an extra half an hour? Not right now. So can I go from 7 to 8:30 if necessary with your acceptance? You can say no, then I have to cut it down. But really, sometimes I go over and I feel guilty every time because I made a time with you, and it seems like never enough. So can y'all spare me flexible half an hour? I may not use it. I may use it. And those who have to go at 8, you could go. You know what I mean? And you can always look at the recording, right? But we don't have enough time to do all we have to do. And, you know, we have a lot to learn, right? A lot. It's so many challenges. It's so many challenges that we're facing. It's not an easy job. So tomorrow night, we're going to have the roundtable, Black Imams Roundtable is going to be a doozy. And really, I wouldn't have going into this much details at this stage. And this is not details, but I would have continued. But we're working under a lot of things. And I don't sleep well at night, not fulfilling my duty of conveying the knowledge. It's like a trust that I have to have with my teachers. So tomorrow night, we're going to talk about the science of Aqidah and honest approach, right? And it's probably going to be at least 3 parts. And I want you to understand there's going to be differences, and we're going to discuss them. So never is it arguing, because that's the punchline people try to use to get out the conversation. We don't argue. We shouldn't argue. We're talking. We're discussing. We're investigating. We're learning so our people are not deceived. It's not an argument. You didn't make it up, neither did I. We're just clarifying and sorting it out, right? At Tenware, I got to look at it. I don't know what you're reading. I'll go look at it. I don't know. Let me check. So I want you to understand something. This is my belief. If we're going to move together as a community, as a people, we have to move together either on the same page, that which is preferable. We're all on the same creed, the same practice. That's preferable. If not that, we got to understand each other and not misrepresent each other. And then make an agreement to work together in what we can work together, and to be have a peace treaty and when we can't agree. Does that make sense to you, what I just said? So either we all on the same page, then we move together, or we understand our differences and we make a peace treaty not to fight one another while maintaining our differences, right? The Prophet ﷺ had to do that with the idol worshippers. That's what the Treaty of Hudaybiyah was about. This is our belief. This is your belief. And we're going to cooperate in a way where we don't fight one another. But that's a peace treaty. And sometimes you might have to make that. And I face this all the time in my city. There are not many Sunni people, Ahl Sunnah Asharis here, you know? But we have an understanding. Y'all do that, we do this, and we're not going to fight one another, right? We're not going to argue with one another. You do what you do, we're going to do what we do, And we're going to learn. And when we can cooperate on something that is not compromising our religious principles, we're going to cooperate. That's it. And it works. But when we are undermining each other in the name of false unity, that doesn't work. So I won't do that. So that's why we're going, because someone said, why are we talking about Aqidah? Because this is a problem in our community. It's a problem. And I think as Muslims, it's one of the biggest problems why we can't cooperate. Because there's an internal difference, right? We're not the same. So we got to fix it. No, it's no problem, Tenwe. I got to look at it though, because I don't know what you're talking about. And inshallah, I'll read it and research it, inshallah. So pay attention though. I want you to pay attention to something seriously. Tomorrow night, watch if we're talking about facts and or opinions and personal stuff. Keep it about the issue and the facts. Even if it drift off to personal stuff, don't let that be a smoke screen for you. You know, a diversion tactic. No, stay on the topic. We're only talking about the topic. That's it. And from the scripture and from our tradition, let's deal with the topic. That's it. And if you can concentrate on that, you'll understand a lot of things. It'll be clear as night and day if you stay on topic. But if you get distracted by antics, screaming, cuss words, name calling, forget all that. We're going to talk about, oh, yeah, you know what, Abu Muwadda, you keep saying Pittsburgh so much. I got me a Pittsburgh cup. Psych, I'm joking. That's not my cup. That's my wife's cup. It's just convenient. But when I was a kid, I used to like the Steelers. You know, everyone liked the team. You know, when they used to be winning all the Super Bowls, Franco Harris and Terry Bradshaw and Lynn Swann and John Starworth, when they used to win all the time, yeah, I was one of those kids too. You always want to be the winners. So when Pittsburgh was winning all the Super Bowls, I'm a Pittsburgh fan. When San Francisco started winning all the Super Bowls, I'm a San Francisco fan. I don't watch sports no more, so I don't even know who's winning. You know how people are like that. We like winners, no matter where they're from. Alhamdulillah, inshallah, let us be good in our behaviors. Let us try our best, but let us learn the deen. That's the simple thing. Let us learn the deen. And please forgive me for taking you on so many journeys with me. But I'm not going to go nowhere unless Allah take my life and health. But as long as I have health and life, I'm going to be here with you. So we'll keep going and we'll keep going and we'll keep going. And eventually it'll all come together. But the most important thing is Allah is not like his creation. With that, we'll close, inshallah. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Barakallahu fikum bisir asrar al-Fatiha. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Please spread the video. Make your intention and spread. Oh, in English, good question. Let me answer that real quick. In English, I haven't read those translations. I think Qurtubi is up to like 4 or 5 volumes now in English translation. But I haven't read the translation, so I don't know. That translator is a good translator, and they are Sunni, but I haven't read it. And compared it to the original Arabic. But they are usually reliable translators. They may have some translation mistakes that need to be adjusted, but in general, their translations are pretty good. But the whole thing has not been translated yet. In Arabic, it's like 14, 15 volumes, my copy. But we'll show you, inshallah. In time, we will get it, inshallah. Barakallahu bikum.